In this video, we're going to look at if and or statements. And if or statements are where we test if something is true in one of the cells or multiple of the cells. And if it is true, then we'll return one value. And if it's not, we'll do something else. It's the building blocks of an awful lot of computer programming. If any of you go on, do that in the future. Or statements are when we're trying to see if it is one thing or another thing. And again, returning a value if it's true and returning another value if it's false. So the function for doing an if statement is equals if, unsurprisingly. And it has usage just like the other ones where we open up the brackets. Now, once we open up the brackets, you'll see the usage case after the brackets. It says logical test, comma, then stick in a value if it's true and stick in a value if it's false. So what we want to do is we want to test whether any of these cells contain the word Chris. And if they do contain the word Chris, then we're going to return one piece of text. And if it's not Chris, then we're going to return another one. So the cell that I want to test is A2. Now, we are not testing whether it's a value. So we could test whether things are greater than or less than using that symbology. But we want to test whether the contents of the cell match exactly. And if it's a statement or a word in that case, or we want to test if it matches exactly, we're going to put it in double quotes. So I want to match the typology that we've got in previous ones, which is equal to Chris. So that's our test. If that cell is equal to Chris, we're going to put a comma. We're going to return another value. And if I wanted to return a statement, I'm going to type that in double quotes as well. So whenever we're dealing with statements or text in Excel, we'll put them in double commas. Inverted commas, isn't that what they're called really? And that'll deal with them fine. So return the man. I want to put something else if it doesn't say Chris in that. Man, we'll just say not the man. I get that Chris is a word or a name that can be used both by males and females, but in this case it's referring to me, so we'll use the man. Remember to close our brackets to close our statement. And when I hit enter here, or finish this formula, it's going to test whether the value inside the cell highlighted A2 has Chris inside it, and it should return the statement, the man. Voila. Happy days. And it did. Now, you can see that that's a rather long-ish formula, and one that we don't want to maybe type out every single time, especially because it's long, and because there's use of inverted commas, it's very easy to mistype. We would like to see, right, if that's set up right, wouldn't it be nice if we could copy and paste it? Now, if we copy and paste it, it's just going to take A2 as the cell, and we'd still have to go back and change it. But Excel has a rather nice function. If I move the cursor over to the bottom right, you'll see there's a little, like, darker black square down there. If I mouse over, you'll see that it changes to a black cross. If I click and drag that the whole way down, it'll copy the formula down, but it'll do something a bit clever. It'll change the A2 value that you see here to the next cell below. Because I've clicked it down one, it's thinking to itself, well, maybe, or you will probably be using the bit just to the left there. So the next value down, and I am, in this case, I am using John. I am testing John, I'm testing Emma, I'm testing Robert, I'm testing Jemima, Chris, and Logan again. And you'll see that as we click down, it automatically changes that for you. Now, it only works for logical lists like this, but there are other things you can do to lock cells in place, and we'll look at those at another time. So let's look at OR statements. And OR statements are whether we want to test one thing or another. In this case, I'm going to separate the males from the females. So I'm going to assume that Chris is a male name in this case, and I'm going to separate and classify whether things are male or female just by name. Now, it's not a long list, so it should be quite easy to do. Emma and Jemima are the only two female names, so I'm going to use the test. If those two things, if that cell is equal to Emma or Jemima, then I'm going to return the value female. And if they're not, then they must be male. And the way that we use it is a little bit different. You'll see it starts off the same. It starts as an if. But our logical test doesn't go straight in away here. we put in what's called a nest statement. We're going to put in the or in the middle of this, and you'll see that it'll put or bracket without the equals before it, but that's the function we're going to use inside. Now once we get to this stage, if bracket or bracket, I'm going to put my logical tests. I want to test whether A2 is equal to Emma, and put my comma. And the other thing I want to test is whether A2 is equal to Jemima. And when I close my bracket there and put all my tests in, you'd see that it turns into an ordinary if statement. Then you see value of true, value of false once I put my comma. But you'll also see that if I didn't close my bracket, I could have put more logical tests in there. So I could have done male and female the other way around. I can test for Chris, John, Robert, Logan as the 4 logical tests. If you make a mistake or it returns an error, the thing you've probably forgot to do is state the value that you want to test every single time. Just be careful of that. So when I put my comma, I'm going to tell it what I want it to return if true. So if it equals to Emma or Jemima, I want it to say female. And if it doesn't, I want it to return male. When I hit this, Chris is the value that we're going to test. It should return male. And sure enough it does. Just like before, to copy this down, especially in this case, because it's quite a longer bit with lots of notation and very easy to mess up, I'll click and drag down and it will change the values to A3, A4, etc. as we go down. And you'll see that it is quite nicely highlighted Emma and Jemima as the 2 correct versions of sex to come through.